Hello, everybody. Lovely to see you. This is very exciting. Great to see you, Vince. Hi, Zoe. Hi, Andre. Are you dialing in from New Zealand? That's just blown my mind. I don't know if Andre can hear me yet, but I'm pretty sure, unless he's maybe, no, because you're traveling in the UK, aren't you? I think you said. And we've got Emma, Rosie, Laura, Samantha, Georgina. This is brilliant. Thank you so much for joining. Fantastic. Right, we are recording this, but we are going to have a little breakout session as well. And obviously in the breakouts, it's not going to be recorded. So it's completely like safe space for you to talk about anything you want to talk about. But the purpose of this webinar today is about how can we all level up as STEM role models? What are the different ways we can do that? And hopefully you'll learn some tips and hints that you can apply in your life as everyday role models. So what we are going to try and do with these live webinars, because this is the first one we've done for our community, which is awesome. We want these to be collaborative. Like that's the point of this community, is that we want to share and learn from each other. So it's not just going to be me talking at you and you just sitting there and switching off and eating your lunch and whatever. I mean, feel free to eat your lunch if you want to as well. But we want to have some interaction. So if at any point you've got stuff that you want to share, comments you want to make, feel free to either put your digital hand up and then we can come to each person in individually, or put stuff in the chat and we can share that. Okay, so it's brilliant to see more people joining as we're going, but bearing in mind we've purposely kept these short at a bite size, just a 40-minute session in total, so we are gonna crack on. Okay, so for those who don't know me, I think everybody on this call knows me, but just in case anybody doesn't, I'm Alex Knight and I'm an engineer. That's my background. And I set up STEMazing back in 2019. So we've been going a little while now. And the kind of like our main vision with STEMazing is to empower more role models to be our change makers of the future, basically. And we focus very much on gender diversity with female role models in STEM. But just recently with this community, we are opening up to all genders to say, please join us. Please be a part of this STEM inclusion and inspiration revolution, because we need more people, role models in our communities, in our workplaces, and in our schools. So that is our aim. Now, I have got a question for all of you, which I've put on a slide here. So let me just share that. And my question is, well, two questions actually. What does being a role model mean to you? And how can you level up as a STEM role model? So whatever your starting point, what do you think you could do to level up? But I think the first important question is, what does it even mean to be a role model? So I want you to think about those two questions. And I'm going to put you in some breakout rooms with a couple of people in each breakout room so that you can discuss those two questions and obviously, hopefully, get to meet somebody new and network as well, because that is absolutely the point of these sessions as well. So straight off, I'm going to ask you to do some of the hard work. Think about, what does it mean to you to be a role model, and how can you level up as a STEM role model? All right, I'm going to put you into breakout rooms so you can have a bit of a chat, and I'll come and say hi in your breakout rooms as well. All right, I'll let you know when you've only got a couple minutes left, but I'll give you sort of 6-7 minutes together. All right, off you go. So let's have a chat about that. So did anyone, I mean, quite often with these things, when you start networking with people, you go completely off topic, and that's absolutely fine. But did anyone come up with some description or some words about what it means to them to be a role model? Does anyone want to share what kind of things came up?
We came up with being visible and just putting yourself out there so that people can see you and see somebody like them that they can relate to.
Love that.
And
Thank you,
that
Kate.
makes a big difference, because then they can make the connection. Oh, if they're doing that, maybe I can do that too.
Love that. Yes. Absolutely. And in your group, I think it was Emma who was also saying about being accessible and kind of being, like you say, available and accessible. And that is so important. And I can see that Jess has also put in there, recognizing you are a role model. I completely agree. That is like absolutely the first step, is realizing that we are role models. Awesome. Okay. And did anyone come up with any ideas of how they can level up as a role model in their discussions? How about Georgina? Anything chatted about in your room about that?
Yeah, there was a few things around, recognizing the fact that if you're visible and if you have any position of authority, parent, teacher, or doctor, or anything that people might look up to you, you have a responsibility to be conscious about your actions whenever they're visible, even if it's outside of your role. And if you see anything that feels uncomfortable, discriminatory, based on misconceptions and stereotypes, just to call it out, not to be accusatory or offensive, but just to say, I don't agree, or I don't think that's funny, or maybe you should consider not saying that and maybe say this instead. It's just to help people think a bit more about what they say.
That is such a good point, because I think sometimes we can forget that being a role model isn't just about standing up on stage or going into a classroom to inspire some young people. Being a role model is about what you do every single day. And that means at work as well, and at home and everywhere we go. So those things that you said, like actually recognizing what's not right and saying something, not being a passive bystander and just letting it happen, easier said than done for sure. And we will have more amazing community conversations about that, with some practical hints and tips, and some of it's covered in the empowerment videos as well. But for sure, like that is where we're aiming to get to. So with that as our kind of aim, being courageous about getting there and bringing other people on board to help with that kind of inclusion mission, because it's hard if you're the only one doing it, especially if there are difficulties and challenges in a particular culture at work. Jesha said, we talked about getting out of our comfort zone, which is very important for growth. Absolutely. Brilliant. Love it. Okay, well, feel free to put any more thoughts in the chat as we crack on. I've got a few of my own thoughts to share with you, which hopefully you will find useful and absolutely reflects what you have all been saying. So I always say that role models inform, influence, and inspire. So all of those things together, it's not really one of them in isolation. They all go hand in hand, really. And it's easy to sometimes forget that actually we don't even need to say anything as role models sometimes. Just by our behaviors and our actions, what we do influences others. And there's lots of research around this in terms of like how, as humans, we evolve and develop our own behaviors and attitudes. And we're very influenced by other people's behaviors. So we develop by observing other people and copying stuff. Sometimes that might even be unconsciously, like not even recognizing we're taking that behavior on, especially if you're influenced by it very regularly. So you can kind of see that's how cultures develop at work, which hopefully are positive cultures with positive traits and leadership. But if there's toxic cultures, it can spread by people accepting and copying other people's behaviors. So that social learning theory about the importance of role models, I think, is fascinating and such a key part of this. And then, of course, role models have an incredible motivational effect when they're positive, encouraging people around us to do better and be better. So that's absolutely brilliant. And of course, the important one around breaking barriers, having role models who are accessible and attainable, just like you were saying, because you can't be what you can't see. And that doesn't just have to be diversity characteristics. It can be all sorts of things, attitude, character, skills, you know, those kind of things. If you are relating to people and make yourself accessible and connect, then that can really help break barriers. Okay. And I think reminding ourselves that role models are vital, not just in a particular, an isolated place. It's everywhere, from our classrooms to our boardrooms and everything in between. So that's super important. And I've put a couple of research papers on there that I find interesting that you might want to look into a bit more about the power of role models. But the important thing is, it starts with us, like all of us as individuals. And exactly like Jess said, I always say the first step is recognizing you are a role model, recognizing you can make a difference, and then intentionally looking to where you can level up your public engagement skills, because being a role model means you will be engaging with others, even if that's just one person that you're talking to or a whole massive group of people. So leveling up your confidence by just practicing doing it, and your toolbox to make a bigger impact. And in our STEMazing community, we are here to help you do all of those things. It's also important that we raise our self-awareness of what is holding us back from being more visible and vocal as a role model, and also recognize when maybe are things real barriers or are they excuses that you are telling yourself. A lot of the time we can say things like, oh, I just don't have the time to do that, I'm too busy, you know, I've got all these other things to do, or that's not for me. And if you really think about why that is, like, there's time for anything we want to do in the world. The important thing is prioritizing what we spend our precious time and energy on. So if being a role model and doing certain things as a role model are important to you, you can prioritize making the time to do that. Yeah, I love that, Jess. We can do anything, but we can't do everything. It's really about prioritization. And other things that might be holding you back around, you know, certain fear things about being more visible, putting yourself out there, public speaking, all of these things that can be barriers holding us back, but recognizing whether it is genuinely a barrier that you can intentionally work on to build your skills and confidence to overcome, you know, and ask for help, get help from the community, or is it an excuse and actually, you know, that's a bit of self-sabotage and some self-limiting behaviors. So interesting to do a bit of kind of soul searching on that one. And of course, as I always say, stretch your comfort zone and do the things that scare you. And you all also mentioned that as well. Vince has said, I mentioned about my first and greatest role models, my parents, and those two first points are particularly relevant. Yes, completely agree. And I think it's so important to recognize who our own role models are or have been at different stages in our lives, and think what made them a role model to us. And then think, well, what do I want to emulate from them, and what do I want to build on from them? So I think that's a very useful exercise and discussion to have. And I think, you know, in our community, we'll be having lots more discussions around that topic. But I wanted to bring up today that there are some barriers to everyday kind of inclusion that as a role model, we can intentionally look to help break down these barriers. And Georgina, you said exactly that. So you've pretty much covered this slide already, which is like actually being aware and looking out for and understanding better things like unconscious bias, microaggressions, gaslighting, that unfortunately do happen in our STEM industries. And it would be wrong to sort of pretend that it's all, you know, sunshine and roses and none of that stuff happens, because it does happen. And as role models, I believe we have the power and the responsibility to do something about it, but don't feel like it's all on you. Collectively, we can do something about it. And finding kind of the community here, but also in your workplace, if you recognize that some of these things are happening, so that you can be that positive influence to drive positive change. Because if we all just sort of stick our head in the sands about it, nothing is going to change, and we'll continue to get, particularly those in the minority, dropping out of our workplaces. So I really believe part of being a role model is about being more aware and proactive about some of the barriers to inclusion. And again, we are going to cover more on these on future topics in our community discussions, because I think it's super important. And we're going to be having some of these sessions that are So this one today, for example, is open to anyone to join in when we have some of our more like maybe challenging discussions where people might want to share some vulnerable stuff. We're going to only be accepting people who are in our community who kind of are explaining why they want to be a part of the discussion, so that we can make sure that like genuinely is a really safe space for people. And as role models, we can always keep educating ourselves, keep looking to level up. And one of the ways we can level up is to keep learning. And of course, you know, another thing I would love is, say, on our community WhatsApp group, if people want to share book recommendations, I blimmin' love book recommendations. So if you want to share any books that you think are helpful for any aspects of being a role model and kind of leveling up how we can do that, then please do put them on the WhatsApp group so we can all share them. These are some I've put up there that I found particularly interesting and useful to read. But it's by no means an exhaustive list. But I think that learning part is a really important aspect of being a role model, continually learning. And that doesn't have to just be from reading books. It can be podcasts, you know, conversations, talking to people, lots of different ways that we can level up. So I'd love for our WhatsApp group to kind of be that place where we can share things that have worked for you, or, you know, signposting each other to useful things that we can all help level up as role models. And you did mention, yes, inspiring the future is absolutely what we want to do in our STEMazing community, and is a really, really important part of being a role model. And of course, you know, we're here for you. We, you know, those who've been through our other programs will know how kind of intentional and proactive we are about doing activities like this, hands-on engaging activities with young children. In STEMazing, we particularly focus on young children because we want to kind of open their eyes to STEM as young as possible, show them what the possibilities are for them. And there's a lot of research now backing this up to say that, you know, STEM interventions with young children have the biggest impact in terms of changing perceptions. And we know that children before the age of 10 can make self-limiting career choices, like decisions. So already self-deselecting themselves from certain careers. And a lot of that is around stereotypes. So if we can go in there and smash some of those stereotypes as young as possible, that makes a massive, massive difference. And of course, in our STEMazing community, you've got access to some STEMazing Kids tutorials where you can learn how to deliver some of the sessions like this, and we'll be adding to that over time. But we don't want to overwhelm you by putting tons in right away. We'll kind of be drip feeding more and more over time. And we'll also be running some of these live sessions where we'll practice running through them so that you can feel more comfortable how you would actually do it live before you actually go and run it with young children. So make sure you make the most of that. And for any of you that are not already STEM ambassadors and doing STEM outreach, if you need any more convincing, I've put a whole massive list of benefits for you for doing it here. And I have personally seen people benefit from all of the things on this list here by doing STEM outreach. And I have personally benefited from every single one of them, I'd say. It is such a fantastic thing to do. I think it's underrated in terms of its benefits. We tend to focus on the things like giving back, which is, of course, very important. But I think we should all be doing a lot more of the STEM outreach activities, and not just with young people, with all ages, because there are so many benefits for people who are in STEM right now. And I genuinely believe that that's a win-win, and helps people develop in their careers, bring those kind of additional skills and learning into the workplace, that renewed confidence, that renewed love of STEM, that renewed motivation. Is so many benefits. So if you're not already a STEM ambassador, absolutely sign up as one. So that's not through STEMazing. You need to go to stemlearning.org and you can register as a STEM ambassador with them, which is important because you get your DBS or your PVG if you're in Scotland, which is basically your disclosure checks to make sure that you're completely safe to work with young people or vulnerable adults. And a lot of schools will ask to see that before you go in and work with young people. So you can get those checks done by signing up as a STEM ambassador with STEM Learning UK. And then once you're signed up, you get access to loads of support on their website as well, and access to opportunities to do more STEM outreach. And you can also benefit from getting involved in STEMazing activities using our STEMazing resources. We'll signpost you to schools that you can work with. And like Jess says, you can put your own offers up on the STEM Learning Hub so schools can see what you are willing to do with them and offer to do with them. So it's fantastic. Thank you, Neva, for putting that link in. So for anyone that's not a STEM ambassador, first number one step is sign up as a STEM ambassador. And if you need any more support with that, let us know, because we can help you. And when you are doing your STEM outreach, I think it's really super helpful if you can remember these top tips, which I've broken down into simple, sensational, STEM for all. So keep it simple. I see so many times people kind of trying to overcomplicate it, fit too much in, be too sort of ambitious with their session. And it just makes life hard. And actually, from all the experience that I've had personally, and we've had in STEMazing, keep it simple and the young people will love it. So keep your message simple and clear. Keep the introduction about you simple and clear, you know, and make it tangible for whatever age group you're talking to, for the audience to understand and relate to. There are so many amazing STEM resources out there for you to use. So don't feel you have to reinvent the wheel. Capitalize on using our STEMazing resources and loads of others. Like I always use for little videos and photos, I use the Royal Academy This Is Engineering campaign. Fantastic videos, really high impact. And those help as well if you want to showcase other diverse role models, especially if you don't cover lots of diversity characteristics yourself. So remembering how you can like weave in representation of different elements of diversity into your session. And the sensational bit, honestly, comes from connection and engagement. You don't need explosions and massive, like, you know, fancy science experiments. What you need is connection and for the audience to be engaged. And in my opinion, the best way to do that is to get them involved in doing something themselves. So again, that's why we've designed our STEMazing Kids activities as we have, so that the children themselves actually do them and take them home with them. And if you remember that, your audience is going to remember how they felt in that session in the long term, not necessarily all the specifics that you said. So think about how you can kind of, you know, really engage them and get them emotionally drawn into what you're doing, which can be through the stories you share or definitely the activity that you do. And the STEM for All piece is a lot around inclusion. So in STEMazing, we have an initiative called STEMazing Spark, which is all about inclusion for mainly SEND pupils, special educational needs and disabilities, but that has lots of benefits for mainstream pupils too. So we'll be sharing a lot more of that with you, okay, as we go through the community. But if you can be thinking about, even, you know, if you're doing this tomorrow or very soon, think about how you can try to include everyone in the class. And importantly, speak to the teacher or whoever's kind of, you know, the responsible adult in advance to ask if there are any additional needs you need to be aware of and how you can best engage everyone in the class. And I think, like, again, comes back to kind of what you're doing with the young people, but activities are brilliant for that. Okay. Has anyone got any questions at that point? I can see Farshad has put up, is STEMazing different with stem.gov.uk? So yes, STEMazing is a standalone organisation. We're a non-profit. We are kind of working in collaboration and alongside other organisations that do this kind of stuff as well. STEM Learning is the organisation you want to sign up with to become a STEM ambassador and get your DBS clearance if you're based in the UK. But very happy to have a follow-on conversation if you want more information on that, Farshad. All right, so making the most of being in this community, lots of ways you can empower yourself to level up as a visible role model. And we've talked about some of those today. Inspire others as a visible role model and continue your own personal learning journey by connecting and collaborating with others. And of course, sharing your experience and sharing your story as well, so that others can learn from you, because we can all absolutely learn from each other as role models, as allies, you know, as good humans in society. That's kind of what we want to aim for. All right, so my sort of takeaway from today is, you already know this because from what you talked about this morning, you recognize, like, we are all role models every day, everything we do. The important thing, though, is for you to intentionally focus on how will you use that platform as a role model to drive positive change. Remember, be visible, take up space, and courageously stretch your comfort zone. And if you just kind of remember that, like our 3 C's of STEMazing, be curious, be creative, and be courageous, then you can't go too far wrong. All right. Now, in the last couple of minutes, I would like you to have a think. What is your personal pledge to take away today from everything we've just talked about? And if you don't mind, putting a couple of thoughts about that in the chat so we can see what each other thinks. And I am going to do the same. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that you can all have a quick think about that. How are you going to level up as a role model? What specific kind of takeaways have you got? And what is your personal pledge? So have a think about that in the last couple of minutes and then write it down in the chat. Jess has said, think about how I can reach other age groups, what activities would suit, etc. Nice, thanks, Jess. Going over my activities, or lots of you putting in here, fantastic. Going over my activities and making sure they are accessible to all. Love it, Rosie, thank you. And I'd love, again, for you to share that. We can talk about that in a further session, so that would be awesome, thank you. Gosh, lots here, that's fantastic. Okay, personal pledge, Laura, keep it simple and sustainable, love it. Jesha, stretch out of my comfort zone, say yes to an opportunity that usually makes me nervous. And again, that's what Neva said, yes to opportunities. My favorite takeaway is that we need to keep it simple, because I can tend to overcomplicate things. Yes, I think that's a useful mantra for life, Adita. I'm thinking that myself as I'm writing a presentation for a conference I'm going to tomorrow. Keep it simple. Amelia, I need to explore STEMazing resources and add to the sessions that I've already done. Yes, brilliant. My pledge is to volunteer for more ambassador work. Mentoring and sponsoring others. Yes, we haven't talked about mentoring enough today, but that is absolutely a key part of being a role model. So thank you for that, Vince, as well. In that sponsoring, I hope to get the message over that they too can be role models. Yes, brilliant. Samantha, promoting STEM widely through social media. Yes, that's another fantastic platform. Georgina, I'm going to make an effort to be visible by attending in-person events where I can be a STEM role model outside my comfort zone, as I love working online. Yes, Emma, going back into STEM events and getting at least 3 in the diary for the rest of the year, and actively trying to do something small and regular to start building on that. Yes, love it. Make it a habit. Fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone. That has been a bit of a whirlwind, but brilliant session. Thank you for all your engagement. Thank you for being part of this and just bringing all of your positive energy into our community. We love having you involved, and look out for the next event. And yeah, stay in touch. Let's get that WhatsApp group recommendations for books going, because I need some new books on the list for the summer. Thanks, everyone. Lovely to see you. Take care. Bye.
Bye.